Good morning, good afternoon, and happy Friday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS main slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. Also, if you're not a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. As a member, you get access to the model you see here, which I'll be using throughout the video, a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder. We also have a private Discord server full of DFS pros to help you improve your game, which includes a 30-minute window leading up to each slate's lock to ask your lineup and slate specific questions. So, without further ado, let's get into the slate. We have a massive 10 gamer tonight. That's right, 10 games we got to get through here. As you know, I like to go through team by team, game by game, kind of talk through all the injury scenarios. I have a DraftKings window open, I have a FanDuel window open. I'll slowly build lineups as we talk through things, but as is always the case with NBA, keep an eye on the news throughout the day, especially this time of the year. Things get very, very crazy. So expect some of this info to change throughout the day, which is all the more reason to sign up to Occupy. Our model updates in real time. And obviously, we'll be discussing injuries in the Discord server as well as they break if necessary. So let's get into this now. 10 games to get through. I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible. First game on the slate, we have the Boston Celtics hosting the Indiana Pacers. The Celtics are 12-point favorites at home, looking at a healthy 234.5 point game total here. So Jaylen Brown's listed as available. He'll be wearing that face mask still. Still no Peyton Pritchard. That's really the only significant injury news for Boston. So this is a great matchup for Boston. It is the first game on the slate, though. So by playing players in this game, you're kind of locking up those roster spots if news is to break throughout the slate. But Tatum and Brown look good on both sides. Can certainly see getting to either of them. Smart, White, Brogdon, all fine as guard options. You're just going to have to kind of pick from the three, which you like best. It is a great matchup against Indiana. Pretty soft defense. They play pretty quickly, but obviously it's also a very widespread, so there is some blowout risk here as well. So while I like Boston, I do think Tatum has appealing upside, as does Jaylen Brown, given his price point. I don't think there's really anything on the Celtics I have to consider a priority here. They're just a little bit healthier than a lot of the other teams on the slate, and they're all kind of priced where they should be. So nothing's really jumping off the page at me. Over on the Pacers side of things, Tyrese Halliburton is questionable. Chris Duarte is questionable as well. So if Halliburton's back, he's viable. There's a lot of good pay up guards tonight, though. I don't think I'd go to Halliburton in a tough matchup against Boston coming off an injury. If he's out, though, we can look to TJ McConnell. We can look to Andrew Nemhard. They've both been excellent in his absence. That also means extra usage is going to go to players like Buddy Hield, even Aaron Naismith. Probably wouldn't rush to get to much Naismith at his price, but he'd be in play here. Benedict Mathurin, regardless of who's healthy, has upside as a scoring dependent guard play. Wide range of outcomes on him, though. So while he does have a pretty appealing ceiling for tournaments, he also has a very low floor. If his shot's not falling, he can leave you with single digit fantasy points. Not the type of player you're going to want on such a massive slate. So yeah, keep an eye on the Halliburton news. If he's out, TJ McConnell and Nemhard could be appealing as value options, but in a tough matchup against Boston, they are priced up a bit. I don't know that you necessarily have to go there. We did see O'Shea Brissett get the start with Chris Duarte out last time. He didn't do great, but he did have the minutes. So if you're desperate for value, maybe you could get to some Brissett, but really there's nothing on Indiana we have to prioritize here, regardless of whether Halliburton's in or out. But if Halliburton is out, I do think TJ McConnell and Nemhard become pretty solid options. Wouldn't mind Mathurin or O'Shea Brissett if Chris Duarte is out here as well. All right, moving into the next game now, we have the Spurs at the Wizards. The Wizards are 8-point favorites at home in 228-point game total here. All right, let's get through the Spurs injury report. We got Charles Bassey out, Kem Birch is out, Zach Collins is questionable, Devontae Graham, Keldon Johnson probable, Trey Jones is probable, Romeo Langford is listed as out, Doug McDermott is probable, Jeremy Sochan is out, and Devin Vassell is questionable. So the bad news is this is obnoxious. Not only are you dealing with a ridiculous injury report full of questionable players, but you're also dealing with Greg Popovich, who tends to make things difficult on us fantasy players. The good news, though, is this is a 7 o'clock game. We are going to have that starting lineup by the time the slate locks. So, first and foremost, if Collins is out, Charles Bassey's already out as well. We could look at Sandro Mamukashvili as a decent center slash power forward play on FanDuel at 5,600, 4,800 on DK. I don't know that you want to use that center spot on him. As great as he was the other night, he only played around 25 minutes in a similar spot with Collins out, so he's going to be tough to get through there. And if Collins is in, I really don't want much Sandro at all. So just keep an eye on that Collins news. In the backcourt, it looks like Devontae Graham and Trey Jones are both back, so there's really not much value to go around back there. Probably wouldn't get to someone like Malachi Branham unless they were both out. Devin Vassell is questionable. If he's out, that's going to be more usage for the rest of the starters. Jeremy Sochan being out does benefit other starters like Keldon Johnson. But yeah, it's just really tough to want to rush to get to anything here just because this is healthier than the Spurs have been recently. And I know that sounds ridiculous given how many names are on the injury report, but it's a lot of guys that are probable, a lot of guys that are questionable that have been out. So keep an eye on that starting lineup. If we get all these guys ruled out, there is some value that's going to open up. Like if Trey Jones or Devontae Graham are out, the other is going to become very appealing. If Collins is out again, you could get to some Sandro. I do like Keldon Johnson probably best if I am playing any Spurs, but priced around 8K on both sites, I don't think he's a priority here. So maybe some value opens up for San Antonio if Base Diop gets into the starting lineup and Vassell and Johnson are both out, something like that shakes out that way. Maybe we could go there. But as of now, as things stand, there's really no Spur I think you have to force yourself into getting to. So just not the best spot for them because their rotation's deeper than it's been in weeks, which sounds ridiculous given how many guys are on the injury report, but that's just facts. On the Washington side, though, definitely more appealing options here. We have Beal and Kuzma both out, which means Kristaps Porzingis looks excellent on both sites, as does Denny Avila, as does Monte Morris, as does Daniel Gafford. You see that reflected in the ownership here. All these guys are very popular. For me, Porzingis and Denny are going to be priorities on both sites. I would prefer to see Denny Avila starting. Um, but even if he comes off the bench, I think he's fine. But with both Kuzma and Beal out, I'm pretty confident we're going to see him in that starting lineup. So I'm going to go ahead and pencil in Denny. I'm going to pencil in Porzingis. And then, yeah, Gafford in center looks good. He's going to see increased usage, but I don't know that I necessarily want to use up those center spots. And then Monte Morris, very cheap on both sides. I'll go ahead and add him for now as well. Maybe we pull him. He's definitely third for me if we're ranking these Wizards plays. But yeah, he's just a little bit too cheap, and I don't know that we have a ton of guard value yet. So we're going to kind of have to wait and see. But for now, I really like all three of those plays. And like I said, Daniel Gafford's going to be in play here as well. Corey Kispert, not drawing as much ownership. He's very scoring dependent, very low floor, but a pretty high ceiling for his price point. Don't mind getting to some of him in tournaments. Delon Wright as well. If you don't want to play Monte Morris, there's a good chance that if Morris fails, Wright has a very good game here as the backup point guard. It wouldn't shock me to see him starting alongside Morris, but I think it's more likely than not that he's coming off the bench. So you could get to some Delon Wright here for value. I'd rather play Morris. I think his minutes are more secure, but the two priority plays here are certainly Denny Avila and Kristaps Porzingis. Again, Kuzma and Beal are both out for the Wizards, so those are going to be core options. Not only are we getting increased usage in minutes, but we also get a great matchup against a Spurs team that's pretty healthy and should be able to keep the game somewhat competitive in spite of their lack of defense. So, great spot for the Wizards there, no doubt. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Raptors hosting the Pistons. Raptors are 14.5-point favorites, 224-point game total here. So another football-like spread we're dealing with. I'll start on the Toronto side of things. It looks like Scotty Barnes is questionable. No Otto Porter. Gary Trent is questionable. Precious Achua is questionable. So there's a good chance everyone comes back, and then none of these Raptors are going to be all that appealing. But say we get Barnes and Trent out, that's going to create extra usage for Siakam, VanVleet, Podol, and OG. All four of those guys would be more appealing than they are currently. Obviously, some blowout risk here against Detroit, but also a very soft matchup in terms of defensive resistance. So I do like some pieces from Toronto if those guys are ruled out, but if they're all in, there's not necessarily anything I'd be rushing to get to. Chris Boucher looked really good the other night. That was with Precious and Scotty Barnes out of the lineup. I think we could go back to him if both those guys are out again. But as things stand, there's just really nothing from Toronto, even with this team banged up, that I'm rushing to get to. Just a good matchup, but Not necessarily a great one given the widespread and kind of the middling total. Not one of the higher totals on the slate for the Raptors here, but it is news we need to keep an eye on. The issue is that um, Nick Nurse doesn't really like to extend his rotations too deeply. So I don't know that we're going to see many value plays just suddenly pop up for Toronto, even if these guys are ruled out, other than maybe a Chris Boucher. Again, with Jakob Poeltl in the picture now, that rotation doesn't need to be as deep as it was earlier in the season. So I like Siakam, I like Van Fleet. I don't mind Podol or OG, but if Barnes or Trent are out, they're going to look a lot better than they do right now. All right, moving over to the Pistons side of things. Boyan's out, Burks is out, Cade is out, Diallo's out, Magruder's out, Stewart's out. Jalen Duren is back in. He's okay, but he's going to cut into the upside of James Wiseman. I don't think I'd play either of them. Marvin Bagley coming off a massive, massive game, but he's priced over 7K now on both sides, so I'm really not going to be all that interested in him. Killian Hayes in the backcourt. They are missing some bodies. He has a little bit of upside here, but he's priced up as well. So while I do like some of these pieces, without looking at the prices, they're all priced up now. So it's really tough for me to want to get to anything from Detroit. Wouldn't mind maybe some Jaden Ivey. I think he probably has the highest ceiling on this team with the front court now healthy. But yeah, just not something I could prioritize or recommend as a core option. So not anything we really need to hone in on for the Pistons. All right, moving into the 8 o'clock window now, we have the Rockets at the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies, 13-point favorites at home, 233.5 point game total here on the Rockets side of things. No Jay Tate, no Ty Washington. Kaminsky's questionable. That doesn't really matter all that much. So, pretty healthy team here for Houston. They've actually been a bit more competitive than expected lately. Very tough matchup for them here, though. Nothing I'm really going to prioritize. I could see getting to maybe some Sengun, Porter, Green, Smith, Martin, but really none of these guys are core options. I think you could look to any of the starters. If we ever see Tyree Eason slide into the starting lineup, he becomes appealing as a mid-range value play, but I don't think we see that here. So yeah, nothing for me from Houston. I'm prioritizing tough matchup against Memphis, widespread, not the highest total, and yeah, they're healthier than they've been over the past couple of weeks. So just no Houston Rocket really jumping off the page to me as things stand. Over on the Memphis side of things, no Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark. John Morant is back and available. He looked fine in his first game back from his suspension. The one play I'm pretty interested in here for Memphis is a FanDuel only option, really. I mean, I guess you could play him on DK, but Xavier Tillman, 5,300 power forward eligible. They're just very, very thin in that front court right now with Clark and Adams out. Where you're getting him as a power forward play, I don't mind him at all. Desmond Bain, his price is still floating below 8K on both sides. So even with John Morant back, I think he's okay as a tournament play. Pretty high ceiling, soft matchup against Houston, but not something I consider a core player priority. Just another pretty healthy team other than that front court, and Tillman has been decent but very inconsistent, so I'm a little bit hesitant to pencil him in on either side or call him a core option. All right, we got an 8:30 game now between the Hornets and the Mavericks. The Mavericks are 14.5 point favorites at home. Just so many wide spreads on this slate. But just keep in mind, you don't have to avoid all those wide spreads because the Stars can get there in three quarters. If there are going to be true blowouts, and if the games do stay close, these are the spots you're going to want to target because obviously they have massive upside against terrible defenses. Charlotte, it is a back-to-back, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. I wish we had this injury report because I do imagine we get some value here. So Terry Rozier left the game injured last night, as did Kelly Oubre, as did Dennis Smith. I think Smith had an illness. There's a chance he's back tonight. If he's in and Rozier's out, Dennis Smith's going to look pretty good as a value option on both sides. 5,200 on DK, 5,800 on FanDuel, but we do have to wait and see. If Oubre's out, and I expect he will be, that's going to be a nice boost to both Hayward and PJ Washington. Hayward's going to see a lot of usage with a couple of these guys out of the lineup, so he's probably my favorite play from Charlotte. But again, this is all kind of me making assumptions based on what happened last night. There's a good chance these guys are healthier than maybe they looked in those moments when they were injured, but it seems likely to me we're without Oubre tonight. We're probably without Rozier. There's also a chance we're without Dennis Smith Jr., and if all those guys are out, we're going to have to look to someone like maybe a Theo Maledon as the backup point guard. I'm not even sure if he's still their backup point. Let me just take a quick look here. Yeah, so if we get Smith and Rozier out, Theo starting at point guard, Theo Maledon's going to be a really appealing guard option. Um, but who else? Svi Mikhailuk, very scoring dependent. I could certainly see him sliding in the starting lineup. He'll have a pretty high ceiling for his price, but a very low floor. All he does is score, really nothing else. So upside on Svi, but a very low floor. Don't mind him as value, but if he gets very popular, that's probably chalk you can avoid. Mark Williams is out again. We could look to Nick Richards as a value play at center. Going to see increased usage with some of these other guys out of the lineup. And while Dallas is pretty tough defensively in the front court, they can be beat. So I don't mind Richards here as a center play, but tough for me to call him a priority. I think the one option here I'm most interested, like I said, is Gordon Hayward, followed by PJ Washington. But this is all under the assumption that we're going to be without Oubre, maybe Rozier, maybe Smith as well. So we're going to have to wait. We are going to have to wait and see here on Charlotte. But again, I don't know that you have to force anything here. It is a tough matchup against Dallas with a wide spread. But if we're lacking value, someone like Theo Maledon could make it possible for you to fit multiple studs into your lineup on a massive slate. So this could quickly turn into one of those stars and scrubs slates, as we like to call them, where you're playing a lot of value, but also you can get two like top pay up options into your builds. So wait and see on Charlotte. But as things stand, nothing I'm prioritizing, but I do expect we get some news to open some value up throughout the day. Over on the Dallas side, Luca is back and healthy. Kyrie is questionable though, so if Kyrie's in, that's going to cut into Luca's upside. If Kyrie's out, Luca's going to be one of the better pay up options on the slate. Very expensive though, 12K on DK, 11.8 on FanDuel. So I'm really only going to get to Luca much if Kyrie's out of the lineup. Wood's been seeing a few more minutes, but his usage is going to come down now that these guards are healthy. Josh Green looked pretty good last time out with Kyrie out. Maybe you could go back to him as a small forward play, but for me, really nothing I'm prioritizing on Dallas here unless Kyrie Irving's out of the lineup, in which case I would get to some Luca, maybe some Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. But Tim Hardaway Jr. himself is listed as questionable. So only go Josh Green if THJ and Kyrie are out. But yeah, if either of those guys are in, there's really nothing I'm all that interested in here for Dallas, except for again Luca if Kyrie's out of the lineup. But I don't know that we get that. All right, it looks like the games are all staggered tonight, which is kind of cool. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Bucks and the Jazz. The Bucks are 9.5 point underdogs on the road in Utah. A little bit surprising to see, but Chris Middleton's going to be out here. No Jay Crowder either. Let's pull up Milwaukee. Yeah, so Giannis drawing a lot of ownership with Middleton out in a pretty competitive environment. I think he's one of the better payups on the board. Really like Giannis on both sides. I might go ahead and pencil him in now, which means we're going to have to find some value as we talk through this slate. Um, I don't know. There are other payups I really like, one being Dame Lillard, but as things stand right now, I think I'll go ahead and add Giannis. We still have around 5K per player on both sites, just under on DK, just over on FanDuel. But he's going to look really good here with Middleton out of the lineup. Utah, decent team, but not the best defense. Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, they're fine as secondary options. I especially like Drew on DK, where he's only 7,200. In lineups without Giannis, I think he makes even more sense. And then maybe I don't know. I'm seeing some ownership going to Grayson Allen with Middleton out. Maybe Pat Connaughton gets the start. I'd actually rather go to Connaughton. He just does more than score, where Grayson Allen's very scoring dependent. So keep an eye on that starting lineup. If we see either of them slide in, they could become appealing as value. But as things stand, I'm really only interested in Giannis and Drew. Drew's more so just the DK play. Don't mind Lopez, but really just Giannis or Drew for me on Milwaukee. All right. Over on Utah now, we have Jordan Clarkson out, no Rudy Gay. Lauri Markkanen's out as well. Wow. Colin Sexton's going to be out. So Utah is very, very thin tonight. So I'm a little bit surprised at how wide that spread looks right now. But what that's doing is it's going to create some value in guys like Chris Dunn. Only 6K over on FanDuel, 5,500 on DK. Kelly Olynyk's going to look really good here. Walker Kessler's going to see increased upside. Taylor Horton Tucker as well. Yeah, kind of tail of two prices on him though. 7,200 on DK is tough to stomach, but on FanDuel 5,500, very easy to get to Horton Tucker here. I can move Giannis out of that small forward spot, bump him down to power forward. Um, yeah, 5,500 for Horton Tucker with all those guys out for Utah looks excellent. Go ahead and move Giannis to power forward. And then I think we're going to see Fontecchio get the start on the wing for the Jazz. He's very cheap over on DK at 4,400. I think he looks good over there. And then Ochai Agbaji, he looks good on both sides. A little bit overpriced on DK now at 5,100. So we do need value. I'll go ahead and add Dunn and Fontecchio over on DK. But yeah, now we have a lineup with Giannis, and we're still left with 4,400 per player, and we also already paid up for Porzingis as well. So, decent shape as far as this build is concerned. But again, no Laurie Markkinen, no Jordan Clarkson, no Colin Sexton. There's going to be a lot of usage and upside to go around. My favorite play is Horton Tucker on FanDuel. On DK, I think Dunn and Fontecchio both look excellent. I think you could also get to Olynyk or Kessler on both sides and feel pretty damn good about it, especially Walker Kessler only 6,700 over on DK. That's just a very appealing price as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, another appealing spot to target. I'm really surprised by this spread. I don't know why the. Oh wait, no, I got it backwards. The Bucks are 9.5 point favorites on the road. That makes a lot more sense. Regardless, this is one of the better game environments on the board. That total pushing 240 points at 236.5. Really like pieces from both sides here, as you can see by these dummy builds. All right, let's move into the next game on the slate now. We got the Chicago Bulls at the Portland Trailblazers. Caruso, DeRozan, both questionable for the Bulls. Um, DeRozan looked pretty injured from what I saw in his last game. If he's going to be out tonight, Levine and Vooch both become especially appealing. Big upside for them if DeRozan is out. Alex Caruso listed as questionable, drawing a ton of ownership for whatever reason. Mostly, I think it's a price thing, and Portland's pretty terrible at defending against guards. So off that alone, there is merit to maybe going to Caruso if he's in. If Caruso's out, that's going to be a boost to Patrick Beverly. But really, the piece of news here we have to keep an eye on is DeMar DeRozan. If he's out, Vooch and Levine are going to be especially appealing. If DeRozan's in, I wouldn't mind any of that big three, but I wouldn't prioritize any of it either. All right. Over on the Portland side, and this is why I was a little bit hesitant to pencil in Giannis earlier. Um, Anthony Simons is out again. Jeremy Grant is out again. Dame is listed as probable. Nurkic is questionable, as is Nasir Little. So Dame sees a major bump in his usage with Anthony Simons out of the lineup. So I know I went ahead and added Giannis, but if you want to go to Dame instead, you're getting a nice discount. Only 800 on DK, so for me, I'd probably still go Giannis. But if you need a little bit of extra salary, you want to go too deep dumpster diving for value, maybe you go with Dame instead. And on FanDuel, I think the pricing discrepancy is greater. Yeah, we're looking at 1,200 difference in price, so maybe you go Dame instead of Giannis. But I do like both those guys a lot tonight. Probably my two favorite payups. If Nurkic is out, excuse me, getting over a cold, I guess. Trendon Wofford's going to look really good here on both sides. If Nurkic is out, he already sees a nice bump in usage with Jeremy Grant at the lineup. But if he's starting at center, his upside just gets very, very high. 6K on DK, 6,500 over on FanDuel. Very solid play there. Matisse Thybulle on FanDuel, where you're getting extra points for blocks and steals with Jeremy Grant at the lineup. I think he looks fine. Um, and then yeah, that's really all that I'm super interested in. We did see a massive game out of Shady and Sharp last time out with Anthony Simons out of the lineup. He's very scoring dependent though. His shot was falling in a big way. But at 5,400 on DK now and 6K over on FanDuel, he's kind of a large field boomer bust tournament play only. So I don't know that I'm going to get to him. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on the news, especially Nurkic. If he's out, Watford becomes outstanding. But I already really, really like Dame, and I think Watford's viable as things stand. Wouldn't mind some Nasir Little if those other guys are out as well here, but keep an eye on the starting lineup because they tend to run their starters much more than the bench, as we saw last time out with Shady on Sharp. That really cut into a player like Cam Reddish. If we see that flip and Reddish gets to start over Shady on again, then I would like Reddish as a value play, but I don't know that that's how this is going to shake out. So really, really like Dame here. Really like Watford here, but Watford is going to be outstanding if Nurkic is out. So keep an eye on that news for sure. Excuse me. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Warriors at the 76ers. Warriors without Andrew Wiggins, that's really the only significant piece of news here. Another healthy team priced where they should be. In tournaments, I don't mind getting to Steph, Clay, Draymond. Looney's fine as long as he's starting. Kuminga, if he gets the nod, is okay as value on the wing. Really, just no priorities for me from Golden State. Just another healthy team, priced where they should be, in a tough matchup too with Philadelphia. On the Sixers side of things, though, Embiid and Harden are both questionable. I think Embiid plays. He's just questionable every day. Harden does actually seem to be hurt, though. If Harden's out, we could go to Maxey, Harris, Melton. If both those guys are out, that being Embiid and Harden, Maxey, Harris, and Melton are going to be outstanding on both sides. If Embiid's out and Paul Reed gets to start at center, he's going to be one of the better value plays on the entire slate. So another situation you're going to kind of have to wait and see on. And with this being one of the later games on the slate, we may not have that news by the time the slate locks. So you might want to leave some spots for yourself to pivot, which is all the more reason to play someone like Dame and some pieces from that Portland game. Definitely creates more options for you as this news breaks. But yeah, let's say Harden's out, then Embiid would be on that level with Giannis and Dame as my favorite payups on the board. If Harden and Embiid are both out, Maxey, Harris, and Melton are going to be kind of core plays. And even with just Harden out, I do really like Maxey and Melton and Harris on both sites, but they are priced up a bit with Harden being out that last game. So a lot to like here for Philly. Really not much to like here from the Golden State Warriors. Moving into the next game on the board, we have the Suns at the Kings. Kings are 3.5 point favorites at home. Very healthy 239 point game total here. Suns have Ayton and Durant both out. We'll start with Phoenix. So yeah, Booker, Paul both look good here. Josh Okogie with Durant out is going to see increased usage, obviously on the wing. He's fine on both sides, floating around 5K. With Ayton out, excuse me, Bismack Biyombo works as a value center. He's priced up though, 5,300 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DK. Can hardly call him value anymore. So really, the plays I'm interested in here are Booker and Paul, where you can afford them. Obviously, Booker the higher ceiling, but Paul much more affordable, easier to kind of build around. And then Josh Okogie as a wing option, especially on FanDuel, where you get both small forward and shooting guard eligibility. I do like him over there. Small forward only on DK, definitely tougher to get to. All right, over on the Sacramento side of things, only Kevin Herter on the injury report. Excuse me. Sabonis and Fox both look fine. Not going to prioritize either of them though. Phoenix is a tough matchup defensively, even without KD or 8. And if Herter's out again, maybe that increases the usage for someone like Malik Monk. He's been very inconsistent though. We've actually seen Kessler Edwards getting more of those starts, and he's been pretty inconsistent as far as fantasy goes. So there's no priorities for me here on the Kings as things stand. If you're landing on Fox on DK at 8,300, I don't mind him. And then Sabonis looks good on both sides, but I'd rather get to those payups we already discussed than guys like Embiid. If he's in and Harden's out, then Giannis and Dame are much better plays in my opinion. All right, one more game on the board here. We got the Lakers hosting the Thunder. Lakers are 5.5 point favorites at home. Still no LeBron, obviously for LA, no Mobama either. So yeah, we can look to Anthony Davis. He's expensive, wouldn't put him on the same level as a Dame or a Giannis on this slate, but he's a little bit lower owned with similar upside, so I don't mind him at all. Austin Reeves has been ridiculously good. Don't mind him on both sides, even at the inflated price tag of 6,800 on DK, 7K on FanDuel. Won't call him a core play at that price, but he's definitely appealing. D'Angelo Russell as well, scoring dependent guard, very high ceiling but a low floor. Those are really the only three plays I'm all that interested in for LA here. Good game environment though, and by playing some of these Lakers, it does allow you to kind of pivot with that 76ers and the Portland Trailblazers do. So it's not a bad idea to kind of build with some of these Lakers pieces. But for now, really like AD. Don't mind Reeves. Don't love the price, but he's been hitting value consistently, and then D'Angelo Russell looks okay here as well. All right, the Thunder are on a back-to-back, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. It seems SGA is playing back-to-backs now, which is good to see. So this is another healthy team kind of price where they should be. SGA, Giddy, Williams, all fine options, but nothing we could really prioritize unless we get some news that someone's going to be ruled out for these Thunder. I don't know that I'm going to be rushing to get to anything here, but SGA is fine, Giddy's fine, Williams is fine, but really large field tournament plays only as far as I'm concerned. All right, so let's just quickly go through what we built so far. Wizards creating a lot of value. Porzingis, Avidog, Morris all look excellent with both Kuzma and Beal out of the lineup. Dame with no Anthony Simons probably my favorite pay up on the board. Quickly followed behind Giannis, but I don't think he could fit both of them unless we get more value. Taylor Horton, Tucker underpriced with so many guys out for Utah here at just 5,500 on FanDuel. Then over on DK, zooming in, we got Avida, Morris, Porzingis, the same we do on FanDuel, but Chris Dunn instead of Taylor Horton, Tucker. That's a price thing coming off the bench for Utah. And then Fontecchio as well, likely starting on the wing there at 4,400, very appealing. And then take your pick between Giannis or Dame as a core pay up option. Quickly sorting by ownership, no surprises. Obviously, we're going to see some value open up for Charlotte, given the injuries they sustained last night. PJ Washington and Hayward should both look really good here. I think Caruso's a little bit overowned, but if DeRozan's out, he's going to be very appealing. So keep an eye on that one. Nothing really surprising over on FanDuel either. Um, yeah, pretty much the same ownership. Obviously, Horton Tucker, very, very popular on FanDuel, where he's unowned on DK. Obviously, 1,500 pricing difference will do that. Then sorting by OF index, which is kind of our weight of upside combined with price, but more so just raw point upside. We're seeing Dame in the top, Luca not far behind. I would only really use Luca if Kyrie's out, though. Then we're getting Giannis, AD, Embiid, Porzingis. No real surprises there. Obviously, keep an eye on that Philadelphia news. If Harden and Embiid are out, then we're going to see a lot of mid-range value open up in players like Maxey Melton and Tobias Harris. Thanks for tuning in. I'm getting over a cold. I wish this went a little bit smoother today, but 10 games. Happy to get through it. Should be a good slate tonight. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Please like the video. Also subscribe to the channel. Sign up to Occupy Fantasy today. Check those links in the description below. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Take care and